In the heart of Highland Park, Michigan, a city deeply interwoven with the story of America's automobile industry, was born a boy named Vincent Chin. The year was 1955, a time when the American dream was full of promise, yet often seemed elusive to many minorities. Vincent's parents were Lily and David Chin, immigrants who had left China behind in search of better prospects for their son. They couldn't have known that their son's life and tragic death would have such a profound impact on the country they'd adopted as their own. Vincent was an all-American boy. He grew up playing baseball and working in his family's restaurant, Chin's Garden Restaurant. He was known for his humor and charisma, qualities that endeared him to his friends and patrons at the restaurant. He was engaged to Vicky Wong and was preparing for what should have been a joyful wedding ceremony, followed by a fulfilling life. In many ways, Vincent's story is emblematic of the Asian American experience during that era. In his family's struggles and triumphs, we see the embodiment of the immigrant dream, the ambition to work hard and forge a better life for their children, the aspiration to be an integral part of the fabric of America. But beneath the surface of this hopeful narrative, there were undercurrents of tension and uncertainty. The once thriving American auto industry was facing stiff competition from Japan. This competition stirred resentment among many, especially those whose livelihoods were tied to the auto industry. It created an environment in which resentment could fester, and the line between economic frustration and racial animosity could blur. The undercurrents of tension and resentment against Asian Americans, and particularly against those seen as responsible for the declining fortunes of the auto industry, would ultimately surface with tragic consequences for Vincent Chin. In a twisted case of mistaken identity and misdirected anger, Vincent was targeted not for who he was as an individual, but for what he symbolically represented. In the early 1980s, Detroit's automobile industry was floundering. Japanese cars were outperforming their American counterparts, leading to job losses and widespread resentment against the perceived foreign threat. This simmering tension was about to reach a boiling point, and, sadly, it would envelop Vincent Chin. June 19, 1982, was supposed to be a night of celebration for Vincent. It was his bachelor party, just a week before his wedding. He and his friends chose to celebrate at Fancy Pants, a local strip club, eagerly anticipating the joyful future that lay ahead. However, the night was about to take a dark turn. At the same venue, there were two other patrons, Ronald Ebbins and his stepson, Michael Nitz. Ebbins was a recently laid-off auto worker, and Nitz was a plant superintendent at Chrysler. To them, Vincent represented the enemy that was taking away their livelihoods. An altercation erupted inside the club. Ebbins and Nitz, in an alcohol-fueled haze, allegedly blamed Vincent and his friends for the American job losses, mistaking them for Japanese. "It's because of you little mother asterisk 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 R's that we're out of work," Ebbins was heard saying, a clear indication of the misguided anger against Vincent based on his race. The management ejected all parties involved in the brawl. However, this was not the end. Ebbins and Nitz, still consumed with rage, sought to escalate the confrontation. They paid another patron to help them find Vincent and his friends. The hunt led them to a McDonald's restaurant nearby, where Vincent and his friends had sought refuge. It was here that the verbal fight turned horrifically violent. Vincent was brutally attacked in the parking lot of the McDonald's. Nitz held Vincent in a bear hug, while Ebbins bludgeoned him with a baseball bat. They left Vincent unconscious and bleeding on the pavement. He was rushed to the hospital, but his injuries were too severe. Vincent Chin died on June 23, 1982, 4 days after the attack. His wedding guests attended his funeral instead. The events of that night reflect a grim intersection of personal prejudice and societal tensions. In Vincent Chin, Ebbins and Nitz saw not a fellow American, but a symbol of their frustrations and fears. The misguided anger, fueled by stereotypes and economic unrest, had led to an innocent man's death. The stage was set for a criminal trial that would lay bare the racial tensions in America's heartland and ignite a national movement for justice. The murder trial of Vincent Chin started on June 28, 1982, just a few days after his untimely death. Ronald Ebbins and his stepson, Michael Nitz, were charged with second-degree murder, a charge that recognizes intent but not premeditation. However, the proceedings that followed would prove to be deeply contentious and leave a lasting mark on American legal history. The defense lawyer for Ebbins and Nitz was able to negotiate a plea bargain. Instead of the second-degree murder charges they originally faced, the defendants were allowed to plead guilty to manslaughter. Manslaughter, which implies a lesser degree of malice, significantly reduced the severity of their potential sentence. When the sentencing hearing took place on March 16, 1983, it created a seismic shift in the perception of the trial. Judge Charles Kaufman handed down a sentence of 3 years probation, a $3,000 fine, and $780 in court costs to each of the defendants. There was no prison time. Judge Kaufman's rationale was that the defendants were not a danger to society and that these were not the kind of men you send to jail. The judge's lenient sentence was widely criticized and sparked outrage within the Asian American community. Many saw the verdict and the subsequent sentence as a blatant miscarriage of justice. The impression was that an Asian life was considered less valuable in the American justice system. The fact that Vincent Chin's killers did not serve any prison time fueled a nationwide debate on racial bias and hate crimes. Notably, the sentencing did not consider the racial aspect of the case. Witnesses at Fancy Pants had heard Ebbins hurl racial slurs at Vincent Chin, indicating that the assault may have been racially motivated. But because federal laws concerning hate crimes were not yet applicable in state courts, the racial elements of the case were not considered during the trial. The ruling spurred immediate action within the Asian American community. Activist groups rallied, raising awareness about the murder and the trial, and demanded that the federal government intervene. This marked a pivotal moment in the Vincent Chin case, transforming it from a local incident into a national cause that challenged the American justice system and sparked a new civil rights movement. The lenient sentencing of Vincent Chin's killers set off waves of outrage and sparked a nationwide movement for justice. A broad coalition of activists, legal professionals, and ordinary citizens, largely but not exclusively from the Asian American community, rallied around the case, turning it into a seminal moment in the fight for civil rights and equality. In the immediate aftermath of the trial, Asian American community groups, civil rights organizations, and individuals came together to form the American Citizens for Justice, ACJ. The ACJ was instrumental in campaigning for a federal investigation into Vincent Chin's death, arguing that it was a hate crime and should be treated as such. They contended that the light sentences handed down by Judge Kaufman indicated a devaluation of Asian lives and were symptomatic of broader racial injustices in America. Responding to the pressure, the U.S. Department of Justice initiated a federal investigation. In 1984, a grand jury indicted Ebbins and Nitz on charges of violating Vincent Chin's civil rights. This marked the first time that the federal government had intervened in a case involving an Asian American victim. The following year, the case was brought to trial in a federal court. In a stark contrast to the state trial, Ebbins was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison. However, this verdict was later overturned due to a technical error during the trial, and Ebbins was acquitted in a retrial in 1987. Despite this legal setback, the movement sparked by Vincent Chin's death had long-lasting impacts. It was a galvanizing moment for Asian Americans, bringing together diverse Asian communities and making them an integral part of the national conversation about race and justice. The case also led to changes in U.S. law. It played a significant role in shaping the 1990 Hate Crime Statistics Act, which mandates the collection of data on hate crimes. And in 2009, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Junior Hate Crimes Prevention Act expanded the federal definition of hate crimes and removed the prerequisite that the victim be engaging in a federally protected activity. The death of Vincent Chin and the trials of his killers brought the issues of racism, discrimination, and justice for all into sharp focus. The legacy of his case continues to influence American society, legal discourse, and civil rights advocacy. It serves as a poignant reminder of the fight for equality and justice, and the strides we still need to take to realize these ideals fully.